Hi everyone, my name is Darrin Crescenzi and welcome to the School of Crafts. Today we're going to be talking about designing logos that stand the test of time. There's something about logos that captures the cultural imaginations, the entire sum of some entity sort of distilled down into this one tiny thing. So a lot of graphic design as we know it deals with ephemera, deals with things that are meant to grab and hold attention for a short period of time, like advertising, editorial design, magazines, that sort of thing. And that work is wonderful and beautiful and I really enjoy looking at it, but it's never been like my thing. I've always been interested in design and creating things that are sort of lasting, that sort of have a permanence to them, that have a weight and a substance to them that is meant to live for a long period of time. Exploring this sort of notion of permanence has weaved its way into the majority of my work, and that goes to the actual logo design that we'll be talking about today. So what exactly makes a logo that endures, that lasts, that stands the test of time? There's a lot that can be done from a design perspective to create forms and to create symbols that actually have a sort of steadfast nature in and of themselves. To create those, I sort of go through a three-stage process. The first is a story. The story of the logo is without a doubt the hardest part of the process. It's the part that has nothing to do with your artistic ability or creativity or the ability to draw or make things. It's just about thinking, and it's about having a concept and an idea and a hook. Blood, sweat, and tears are what make great logos. And finding a story that really resonates is a challenge, a great challenge. And for me, it always starts with writing. Writing is a huge part of my design process, and everything I do begins with word generation. And this is how I have ideas. The right idea, the right solution to any graphic design problem does not already exist in your head. You have to work really hard and generate a lot of content to find that kind of buried, hidden idea. It doesn't just pop out, right? It's not already there. And if it is already there, it's probably something you've seen before, or it's obvious, or it's uninteresting or uninspired. You gotta dig. And I do that through word generation. So I do these provocation techniques, things like mind maps and lists and free associations to help generate as many ideas as I can in order to get myself away from obvious solutions. So for example, I had the privilege of working on a commemorative logo for the tennis player Roger Federer, who had spent 287 weeks as the #1 ranked player in the world, which is a new record. But where to begin with that? 287 in and of itself is just a number. It doesn't really have any sort of visual or emotive content, so we had to create that. And to start, begin with a word map, a mind map, sort of a free association exercise where you begin with Roger Federer and tennis, and you just build words out from there. So from tennis, you would go to Wimbledon, to England, to grass, and maybe on a different branch you would have net to squares to grid to something, just, you know, a pathway. One of those pathways for the 287 project was the word ace, which is obviously a tennis word, but when you begin to think about ace, you begin to think about kings and queens and jacks and playing cards. And so the idea to do the logo as a playing card, like an ambigram, came to life and ended up becoming a really wonderful solution that was unexpected, not obvious, and created a great logo. So for any design process, I really believe that story phase should take up, you know, at least half, if not more, of the idea generation, because you can make a really beautiful logo, but if it doesn't have that great story, that great hook behind it, you know, it's sort of all for naught, and it's not a way to create a logo that really lasts. So the next phase of design is form. This is where you actually take the idea you've landed on and begin to bring it to life visually. For the form stage, this is the most important tool that I have, just a pencil. I draw continuously throughout the design process, generate as many sketches as I can, sometimes numbering in the hundreds for a single concept. It's a way to, in the spirit of, again, rapidly creating ideas, the pencil is the best tool you have. I know a lot of designers like to work on the computer, and I get there eventually, but the computer is really good at math, at creating shapes that are rigid and sharp and perfect. But when you're generating ideas, you don't want to be rigid or sharp or perfect. You want to be free. You want to be giving yourself the opportunity to have spontaneous reactions to the marks on the page. It's an iterative process where you draw one thing, which sparks an idea to the next one, which sparks an idea which leads to the next one, until you have eventually exhausted your ideas but have ended up in a place that you would have never thought before. I also think it's important that you consider the sketch phase to be continuous. I carry a sketchbook with me everywhere I go. I sketch on the train, I sketch at the beach, I sketch in bars, I sketch everywhere, because you never know when something you see in the world is going to spark that idea. It's basically about having the tools at hand to be able to sort of get your thoughts on paper before they're lost forever. So it's important to know that sketching is not about being able to draw well. It's not about precision. It's about giving yourself the opportunity and the freedom to ideate, to generate as many ideas as you can. So for any logo project, I probably generate a couple hundred pencil sketches. Most of them are terrible. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them sort of move to the next phase and get drawn again 100 times. I also bring language back into the process at this stage. So if I land on an idea that I think is working really well, I'll then run it back through some of those adjectives. So if I have this thing that's a square, I go, well, what's a fast square look like? What's a slow square look like? What's a sharp square look like? And that sounds ridiculous, but it's actually a way of forcing yourself to create new and different forms that you perhaps wouldn't have if you were just trying to draw a square. So after you've generated pages and pages of sketches, then it's time to go back and look at the body of work you've created and pick out those things that have promise and keep iterating on them if they need to, but if not, it's time to bring them to the computer and make them into something real. So the third and final stage of logo design is refining through logic. So what I mean by logic is creating a system of visual rules that give the logo its character, the DNA of the thing. Is it built out of squares? Is it built out of triangles? That it's based on a sort of visual ratio of 1:3 or something. But there's a logic to where you set up the rules and the logo kind of designs itself. So it's very important to consider the context in which your logo will appear. Simplicity is not a goal in and of itself, but it is a great filter to take a piece of design through to make sure that you're expressing the idea in the simplest and most concise way possible. And that's a great place to be for creating marks that are designed to last and to be around forever, because you're not at that point beholden to trends or styles, but you're really basing the construction and the visualization of the logo on geometric principles that have lasted for eons, squares and circles and triangles and things of sort of the bare essence that aren't going away. And that's one of the biggest keys, is baking in to the way that you actually draw and build the mark these sort of inherent timeless elements that you just have to think of new ways to use. The reality of identity design is that it's a messy, involved, exhausting process, but that's where the fun is. So in the end, an enduring brand mark has enough story to be memorable, a form that makes it distinctive and recognizable, and a logic that allows it to weather changes in visual culture and stand the test of time. Thanks everyone for watching School of Craft, Creating Logos That Last. To see more of my work, visit me online at darrincrescenzi.com. Follow me on Twitter at QuickBrownFox. Thanks for watching.